Can I take a moment and speak to your spirit today? I don't know who I'm talking to, but I can feel it in this room. There's someone carrying the weight of loneliness. You're smiling on the outside, but inside you're tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of sitting in crowded rooms feeling completely alone. Tired of scrolling through contacts with no one you trust enough to call. Am I talking to somebody today? But I came to tell you this morning, loneliness doesn't have the final word in your life. Oh, I know it feels like rejection has written his story, but that's just a chapter, baby. God is getting ready to flip the page. What you see as isolation, he sees as preparation. What you thought was rejection, God sees as protection. Sometimes the greatest friendships you'll ever make don't start with people around you, but with the King within you. I dare you right now to say, this is not how my story ends. You may be walking alone today, but by the time God is finished with you, your table will be surrounded by people who love, celebrate, and lift you higher. So buckle up, lean in, and let's walk through this word together. One, loneliness is not the end. It's often a season of preparation. Here's the expanded keynote in a motivational tone. When we think of loneliness, we often view it as a sign of rejection, failure, or even punishment. But I want to challenge that perception today. What if loneliness is not the end of your story, but the beginning of a transformative chapter in your life? What if it's not a curse, but a divine season of preparation, positioning you for something far greater than you can see right now? Sometimes the noise of the world needs to be silenced so that you can hear the whisper of God calling you into your next level. Loneliness is often the cocoon where greatness is cultivated. You see, we live in a society that glorifies being constantly connected, social media, group chats, endless meetings and hangouts. We measure our worth by how many people surround us, how many likes we receive, or how often our phones buzz with messages. But here's the truth. Some of the most significant breakthroughs in life don't happen in the crowd, they happen in the quiet. God does his best work in solitude because that's where distractions are stripped away and clarity begins to take root. Loneliness may feel like emptiness, but it's often fertile ground for purpose. When you're in a season of loneliness, it can be tempting to fill that void with the wrong things, toxic relationships, endless scrolling, or meaningless activities that numb you rather than heal you. But I encourage you not to run from that space. Sit in it. Listen, reflect. Because when you face yourself in those quiet moments, you begin to uncover who you really are beyond the roles, the expectations, and the opinions of others. You start to understand what truly drives you, what brings you joy, and what areas of your life need healing. Look at some of the greatest figures in history, both in the Bible and in the world around us. Moses was alone on the backside of the desert when God called him through a burning bush. David was isolated as a shepherd boy before he became a king. Jesus himself often withdrew to lonely places to pray and connect with his Father. Their seasons of solitude were not wasted time. They were seasons of preparation for the purpose that was coming next. God often pulls us away from the crowd because he wants to deposit something inside of us that the world isn't ready to see yet. But here's where it gets real. Loneliness will test you. It will reveal your insecurities, your fears, and the parts of yourself that need refining. And that's a good thing, because when those things come to the surface, you have the opportunity to confront them and grow beyond them. You learn to stand on your own 2 feet to find strength within yourself rather than relying on external validation. And when you come out of that season, you're stronger, wiser, and more resilient. You've been fortified in the quiet places, and now you're ready to face whatever comes next. Now, I'm not saying that loneliness is easy or that you should pretend to enjoy it. No, loneliness can be painful, and it's okay to acknowledge that pain. But even in that pain, there is purpose. Even in that discomfort, there is growth. You're being prepared for something that requires a stronger, more grounded version of yourself. And if you rush through this season or try to escape it, you may miss the very lessons and strength that God is trying to impart to you. I want to challenge you to shift your perspective. Instead of asking, why am I alone? Start asking, what is this season preparing me for? Instead of focusing on who's not there, focus on who you are becoming. Use this time to develop your skills, deepen your faith, and cultivate the vision that God has placed in your heart. Because when that season of preparation is over, You won't just return to life as usual. You'll be ready to walk boldly into your purpose, carrying the wisdom, strength, and clarity that only solitude can bring. 2, God sometimes removes people to elevate your focus and purpose. Life has a way of shifting relationships in and out of our lives. People we thought would be with us forever sometimes drift away, and connections we counted on can dissolve without warning. When this happens, it's easy to feel rejected, abandoned, or even betrayed. You might question what you did wrong or wonder why God allowed it to happen. But I'm here to tell you that sometimes God removes people from your life, not as a punishment, but as a divine strategy to elevate your focus and align you with your true purpose. The truth is that not everyone can go where God is taking you. Some relationships are seasonal, designed to serve a specific purpose in your life and then fade away. And that's okay. The problem arises when we try to hold on to people who are only meant to be with us for a chapter, not the entire book. Sometimes we cling to these connections because they are familiar, comfortable, and reassuring. But God sees the bigger picture, and when He starts moving people out of your life, it's often because He's making room for new growth, new opportunities, and a deeper connection with Him. You see, when we are surrounded by people, it's easy to become distracted. We get caught up in their opinions, their expectations, and even their validation. We start making decisions based on what will keep us accepted by others rather than what aligns with God's purpose for our lives. And while community and relationships are important, they can sometimes cloud our focus. God knows this, and that's why He will lovingly but firmly remove certain people from your life to redirect your attention back to where it needs to be, on Him and on the purpose He has for you. But let's be real, when God starts moving people out of your life, it doesn't always feel like a blessing. It can feel like rejection, and rejection stings. It taps into our deepest insecurities and makes us question our worth. But I need you to understand this. When God allows someone to walk out of your life, it's often His way of protecting you from something you can't see. Maybe that person was holding you back, even if they didn't mean to. Maybe they were speaking doubt into your dreams, or subtly encouraging you to settle for less than what God has for you. Or maybe their season in your life simply came to an end, and God knew it was time for you to grow beyond that relationship. Think about Abraham in the Bible. God told him to leave his country, his people, and his father's household and go to a land that He would show him. Can you imagine how difficult that must have been? Abraham had to leave behind everything familiar, his friends, his support system, his entire way of life. But it was only when he obeyed God and walked away from those connections that he was able to step into the destiny God had prepared for him. God may be asking you to do the same. He may be calling you to let go of certain relationships, not because those people are bad, but because they are not part of your next season. And here's the beautiful part: when God removes someone from your life, He always fills that space with something better. It might not happen right away, and it might not look the way you expect, but God never leaves a void in your life without a divine plan to fill it. In those moments when you feel alone, I encourage you to lean into God. Let Him be your source of comfort, strength, and guidance. Use that time to refocus on your purpose, to seek clarity about the path you're meant to walk, and to grow into the person God created you to be. Because when you do that, you'll find that the right people will start to come into your life, people who align with your values, who support your growth, and who push you closer to your God-given purpose. Sometimes the pruning process is necessary for new growth. Just as a gardener cuts away dead or overgrown branches to allow a plant to thrive, God will sometimes cut away relationships that are no longer serving your destiny. It may be painful in the moment, but it's a sign that He is preparing you for greater things. Trust that He knows what He's doing. Trust that He sees the full picture, even when all you can see is loss. And most importantly, trust that His plans for you are always good. 3, use isolation to discover your identity and strengthen your spirit. Isolation is a word that often carries a negative connotation. When people hear it, they immediately think of loneliness, rejection, or being cut off from the world. But isolation isn't always a curse. Sometimes it's a divine invitation to discover who you really are and to strengthen your spirit in ways that only solitude can provide. The truth is, in a world that constantly bombards us with distractions, opinions, and noise, it's easy to lose sight of our true identity. We get so caught up in playing roles and meeting expectations that we forget who we are at the core. Isolation, when embraced rather than feared, can be the very environment where self-discovery and spiritual growth thrive. When you are surrounded by people and responsibilities, your time and energy are often divided. Your attention is pulled in so many directions that it becomes difficult to hear your own thoughts, let alone the voice of God. But when you find yourself in a season of isolation, all that noise fades away. It may feel uncomfortable at first because we've been conditioned to seek constant stimulation. However, that quiet space is exactly where transformation begins. In that silence, you have the opportunity to confront the thoughts and emotions that you've been avoiding. You begin to ask yourself important questions. Who am I when I'm not defined by other people's opinions? What do I truly value? What is my purpose? This is where true self-discovery happens. When you strip away the titles, the relationships, and the external validation, what remains is the essence of who you are. And that's a beautiful thing because your identity is not based on what you do or who you're connected to. It's rooted in who God created you to be. Isolation gives you the space to reconnect with that truth. It allows you to break free from the need to constantly perform or prove yourself. You begin to see yourself through God's eyes rather than through the limited perspectives of others. But isolation isn't just about discovering your identity, it's also about strengthening your spirit. Life can be challenging, and if you're constantly relying on external sources for strength and encouragement, you'll find yourself depleted when those sources aren't available. Isolation teaches you to draw strength from within and, more importantly, from your connection with God. It's in those quiet moments when you can truly seek His presence, hear His voice, and be reminded of His promises. Throughout history, some of the most significant spiritual breakthroughs have happened in isolation. Moses encountered God on Mount Sinai when he was alone. Elijah heard God's gentle whisper in a cave after a season of despair. Jesus himself often withdrew to solitary places to pray and find strength. These moments of solitude were not wasted time. They were crucial for their spiritual growth and alignment with God's purpose. If isolation was necessary for them, why would it be any different for us? When you're in a season of isolation, it's easy to focus on what's missing. You might feel the absence of friends, family, or a community that understands you. But instead of dwelling on what's not there, shift your perspective to what's being built within you. Isolation is like the process of refining gold. It removes impurities and strengthens what remains. Your character is being shaped, your faith is being tested, and your spirit is being fortified. This is not wasted time, it's preparation for the next chapter of your life. One of the most powerful aspects of isolation is that it forces you to become your own advocate. When there's no one else around to cheer you on, you learn how to encourage yourself. When there's no one else to guide you, you learn to seek wisdom from within and from God. This self-reliance, rooted in faith, becomes a source of empowerment. You realize that you are capable of standing strong, even when the world around you seems unstable. Another beautiful aspect of isolation is that it often leads to creativity and innovation. When you're not distracted by the opinions and expectations of others, your mind is free to explore new ideas, dreams, and possibilities. Many great works of art, groundbreaking ideas, and life-changing revelations have come from individuals who spent time in solitude. What dreams have been buried under the noise of your everyday life? What visions has God placed in your heart that are waiting to be uncovered? Isolation creates the perfect environment for those seeds to take root and grow. So if you find yourself in a season of isolation, don't waste it by trying to escape or numb the discomfort. Lean into it. Use that time to discover who you are beyond the roles you play and the relationships you have. Seek God with all your heart and allow Him to reveal the truth about your identity. Strengthen your spirit by building a foundation of faith that is unshakable. Let this season be the turning point where you emerge stronger, wiser, and more connected to your true self and your divine purpose. For true friendships are built on authenticity, not convenience. In a world where connections can be made with a click of a button and friendships are often measured by likes, follows, and shares, it can be challenging to distinguish genuine relationships from surface-level interactions. We live in a culture that often prioritizes convenience over authenticity, where people come into your life as long as it's easy, beneficial, or fun. But true friendships are not built on convenience. They are built on authenticity, kind of authenticity that stands firm through life's ups and downs, through success and failure, joy and sorrow. Authenticity in friendship means showing up as your true self without the need to wear masks or pretend to be someone you're not. It's about being vulnerable and allowing someone to see both your strengths and your weaknesses. your triumphs, and your struggles. This level of openness requires courage, but it's also the foundation upon which meaningful connections are built. When you have to constantly curate your personality or hide your true feelings to maintain a friendship, that relationship is built on fragile ground. True friends accept you as you are, not as who they want you to be. Convenience, on the other hand, is fleeting. Friendships based on convenience only last as long as the circumstances remain favorable. When things get tough, when misunderstandings arise, or when life takes an unexpected turn, those connections often fade away. The people who were once there for the good times suddenly become unavailable when you need them the most. This is because their presence was never rooted in genuine care or commitment. It was rooted in what was easy or beneficial at the time. True friendships are tested in the valleys, not on the mountaintops. It's easy to be friends when everything is going well, when the conversations are light, and when life is smooth. But when challenges arise, when you lose a job, face heartbreak, or struggle with your mental health, that's when the authenticity of your friendships is revealed. True friends don't run away in those moments. They lean in, they show up with compassion, support, and understanding, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. These kinds of friendships require effort, communication, and a willingness to navigate the messy parts of life together. They thrive on mutual respect and a deep sense of trust. And trust is built over time through consistent actions, not just words. It's built when someone keeps their promises, listens without judgment, and stands by your side when it would be easier to walk away. Authentic friendships are not about perfection, they're about grace. They allow room for mistakes, misunderstandings, and growth. One of the most beautiful aspects of authentic friendship is that it creates a safe space for personal growth. When you have friends who see you for who you are and love you anyway, you're empowered to become the best version of yourself. You're encouraged to pursue your dreams, confront your fears, and learn from your failures. True friends hold you accountable not to tear you down, but to lift you up. They celebrate your victories without jealousy and mourn your losses as if they were their own. Building these kinds of friendships requires intentionality. In a world that moves fast and prioritizes instant gratification, it's easy to fall into the trap of surface-level connections. But authentic friendships don't happen overnight. They are cultivated through meaningful conversations, shared experiences, and mutual investment. It requires both parties to show up, to be present, and to be willing to put in the work. It's also important to recognize that authenticity begins with you. You cannot expect to attract genuine friends if you are not willing to be authentic yourself. This means being honest about your feelings, owning your mistakes, and showing up as your true self, even when it feels vulnerable. Authenticity is magnetic. When you lead with honesty and openness, you invite others to do the same. But here's the reality: not everyone will value or reciprocate authenticity, and that's okay. Not every connection is meant to be a deep friendship. What matters is that you prioritize quality over quantity. A few authentic friends who truly know and love you are far more valuable than 100 acquaintances who only stick around when it's convenient. True friendships are a gift, but they are also a choice. They require discernment, effort, and a commitment to authenticity. When you find those connections, cherish them, nurture them, and never take them for granted. Because in a world filled with fleeting interactions and surface-level relationships, authentic friendships are rare treasures that enrich your life and strengthen your spirit.